Quick schedule reminder before we jump into today's video. We are having live shows here on the channel every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to see how the sausage is made, if you want to be a part of a live edition of Falcons Today, make sure to tune in every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. On today's show, we're going to run through 5 moves Terry Fontenot and the Atlanta Falcons can make this offseason to clear up some cap space to be big ballers in free agency if that's the route they want to go. But before we get to all that, first, what big name free agent do you want Atlanta to sign, right? Is it Kirk Cousins? Is it Josh Allen, the other Josh Allen? Is it Brian Burns? Is it T. Higgins? Just get in the comment section right now and let me know which big name free agent you would like to see the Atlanta Falcons sign. Now, let's kind of set the scene a little bit here. The Falcons currently are 14th in cap space for 2024 with $25.8 million available. Now, remember, if they sign someone to like a 4-year, $100 million contract, it's only $25 million for that first season. So don't think of it like they only have $25 million to spend just for 2024. But they could generate a lot more room. And that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. And the first way they can do that is this: releasing Taylor Heinicke. They could also trade him. I don't know what team is calling to trade Taylor Heinicke, but I will add that. But a release seems much more likely. Arthur Smith more or less signed Taylor Heinicke. He's gone, and Heinicke is likely gone too. Why? Because you can save $6.5 million. You've got $25 million in the bank right now. You could add $6.5 million with only a $2 million cap hit, a dead cap hit for 2024 if you move on from Taylor Heinicke. To me, this seems like an absolute no-brainer, right? Taylor Heinicke this past season did not show us any reason to believe he can be this team's starting quarterback going into 2024. Arthur Blank more or less called out Heinicke and Ridder by name without explicitly doing so, saying, "We sucked at quarterback. We need to get better." They're not bringing back Heinicke and Ridder to start in 2024. They can't save much money at all by moving on from Ridder, but they can save $6 million by moving on from Heinicke. Now, I also will float out this idea. If Atlanta trades for Justin Fields, I could see the Falcons including Heinicke in that trade. That way, Chicago's got a bit of a placeholder QB to at least run some drills in training camp at the very least with the rookie quarterback and provide some mentorship in that quarterback room. So just keep an eye on that as well. Move number 2, release Lorenzo Carter. You're going to see a bit of a trend here before we get to some of the big splashy ways to open up some money. But Lorenzo Carter came back on a 2-year contract, and he saw a major reduction in his role. And I see $3.7 million in cap savings at the price of $1 million in dead cap. To me, the pros outweigh the cons here. Carter this past season, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, especially towards the very end of the year. We did not see a whole lot of him on defense. So I just think the cap savings outweigh the production you got from Carter last year. And I'd be very much interested in moving on from Lorenzo Carter and saving a bunch of that cap space, right? Because if you move on from Lorenzo Carter, well, add that to Taylor Heinicke, and all of a sudden you're at like 35-ish million dollars now in cap savings, almost there. So now you got $35 million to spend if you were to move on from Lorenzo Carter. Before we get into our next 3 moves Atlanta could make, we are so close to reaching 19,000 subscribers. You can see that we are about 40 or so subs away. So I invite you to join the channel if you have not already and get yourself the best free Falcons YouTube content throughout all of free agency and the draft. Move number 3, release Jonnu Smith. I promise this is the last of the releases, but all these 3 releases make some sense. Now, Jonnu Smith is an interesting one because I don't want to cut Jonnu Smith because he was bad last year. Now, you could argue he was the most explosive player on that offense. Like, he had some big plays for Atlanta, right? But again, Jonnu Smith overlapped with Arthur Smith in Tennessee. That's why we saw that trade go down. Now that Art is gone, I think Jonnu may be packing his bags as well. Now, when you add in the fact that you could save $6.5 million if you were to move on from him, yeah, I think the writing's on the wall, unfortunately, for Jonnu Smith, and he may very well be gone. So Jonnu Smith, I think, is a very, very prime candidate to be released. Let's move on to move number 4 to save some caps here. Oh, actually, one last thing. Thank you. So if you were to move on from all those guys here, put it on screen, and Mike Hughes, I mean, we're looking at about $20 million in cap space just by cutting all 4 of these players. I'll toss in Mike Hughes as well, just because I feel like he's right there on the fringe. The reason why I didn't explicitly say him is, well, with Jeff Okudah a free agent, maybe Atlanta's not rushing to move on from another cornerback. But for $3 million, if they want to get $20 million in cap space, they can move on from 4 players, and boom, it is done. So if the Falcons move on from those 4 players, now they've got $45-ish million in cap space. That's plenty of money. You could sign a marquee, incredible free agent. You could sign T. Higgins, pay him $20 million, and you still have $25 million to spend. You could sign Josh Allen or Brian Burns to a contract that pays $25 million a season, and you've still got $20 million to spend. So this is plenty of money to spend. But let's just say Arthur Blank goes, I'm 81. I don't know how much time I've got left. Maybe I really want to get everyone. Maybe I want to get T. Higgins and Brian Burns. And if that's the situation, they're going to need to make some more room, which they can do, and we're going to look at next on today's show. But first, I do want to tell you guys about our sponsor, which is Prize Picks. So get started with Prize Picks today because it is super simple and user-friendly with easy withdrawals to go along with it. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players and then choose more or less on their projected stats. So let me give you a visual of what I'm talking about. Take the Hawks game here. I'm taking the more on DeJounte Murray. By the way, they've got Demons and Goblins, I should mention, which are lower or higher stat projections, easier to hit or more difficult to hit, but it also changes the payout. I took the more on DeJounte Murray's assists right there. And then I got the more on Brandon Miller and the more on Trae Young for his points. So if you like my selections, go feel free to ride with me at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Now, because I love you all, I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. That's Prize Picks. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Now, switching gears here, let's get back to ways we can create some extra cap space for Terry Fontenot and the Falcons. Move number 4 would be extend AJ Terrell. I know that might sound a bit backwards, like we're going to pay him more money to make more cap space. I don't get it, but I'll explain in a moment. First off, AJ Terrell comes off an interesting season last year, where I don't think he was bad by any stretch, but we've now marked 2 straight seasons without an interception. And I don't think interceptions are the only way to indicate whether or not a cornerback is good. But I do think there is a level of truth to A.J. Terrell's first 2 years were better than his last 2 seasons. And I don't think that's all that hot of a take, right? He goes from having 4 interceptions in years 1 and 2 to 0. Pass breakups is down. Forced fumbles is down. And touchdowns allowed are up. So I can see why maybe Atlanta would have a level of hesitation as Terrell enters the final year of his rookie contract before giving him an extension. But ultimately, I think AJ Terrell is a good cornerback, and he is worthy of a contract extension. Not a contract reset the market, not become the highest paid cornerback. No, I'm not interested in that. But I am interested in paying him 4 years, $64 million. That's an average of $16 million, and we're going to guarantee over half of it. So essentially, it's a 3-year contract for $45 million. Now, corners are so valuable in this league, where A.J. Terrell might not be a top 3 corner, no questions asked, but he's definitely one of the best cornerbacks in this league. And when you think about what positions are so frequently going in the top 10 of drafts and are the highest paid in free agency, it's quarterback, edge rusher, offensive tackle, corner, wide receiver. Those 5 positions. It's not a coincidence that they always go first in the draft and are always the biggest free agent price tags. So when you've got a good corner, and the Falcons have a good to great corner in A.J. Terrell, they should not mess around. They should not get too cute with it and go, oh, we could save some money and move on from him. No. Extend him. And when you extend A.J. Terrell, What that allows you to do is it allows you to take his cap hit for this season and you can spread it out over the remainder of his contract. And if you do that, now you're up to $55-ish million in cap space. So by extending him 4 years, putting 4 more years on his contract, take his cap hit for this year and spread that bad boy over the remainder of his contract and free up more money for now. Because what's the business expression? Money now is better than money later. And that would be money now. Now let me know if you would extend AJ Terrell. Do you think he is a future cornerstone piece of this franchise that's going to be here for 8-9 seasons? Let me know yes or no in the comment section. Now, while you're getting those yeses or nos in the comments, let me tell you about move number 5 to generate more cap space for Terry Fontenot. Terry, I hope you were writing this down. Move number 5. Restructure Jake Matthews' contract. Let's talk about what a contract restructure is. A lot of people just think the word restructure means the player agrees to less money. No, that's not a contract restructure. That is a player agreeing to less money. A contract restructure is when you take their base salary for this season, 2024, and you prorate it over the remaining years of their contract, which thus lowers their cap hit for this year, 2024, and raises their cap hit in future seasons. That is what a restructure is. It gives you money to spend now, but later on in their contract, you are going to have a bigger cap hit for the player. That's what the New Orleans Saints have been doing for 10 plus years, and a lot of other teams are starting to do that because they want to maximize their spending right now. In other words, it's kicking the can down the road. So why Jake Matthews, though? He turned 31 years old just a few days ago, actually. He is under contract through 2026, and he's the longest tenured Falcon, period. So there are a couple of players that you could restructure contracts for. But if you are restructuring a player's contract and you are lowering their cap hit for this year, but raising future cap hits, what that means is you are banking on that guy being here for the duration of their contract. Because if you restructure their contract and then raise their cap hit in their last 2 years and decide, oh my God, he sucks, we have to cut him. Now you've got you have a big bill to pay. And you don't even want the guy in your team anymore. It's one thing if you restructure their contract and at the end of their career, end of their contract, they've got a big cap hit, but they're still super productive. So you go, you know what? We'll suck it up and it's worth it because they're still producing. But if they're not even on your team anymore and they leave you with a bill of $25 million, that is tough to overcome. So I'm only looking at guys I think that are going to be here for the duration of their contract. And I think Jake Matthews, he's only known one thing, and that is being an Atlanta Falcon. Ever since he was a first-round pick in 2014 out of Texas A&M, he has been the most consistent piece after Matt Ryan on this offense, right? He had a bad rookie season, but that was a decade ago. Look at what he's done Pro Football Focus ranks-wise since then. Consistently finishing in the top 15. This past season, he finished 30th out of 81 qualifying tackles. We are still talking about a top half tackle in this league. And we saw last year how many starting quarterbacks got injured? Over half. It is so important to make sure your quarterback stays upright. So don't mess around with the left tackle when you've got a surefire starter like Jake Matthews. Now, I could only see the Falcons doing this if they plan on being big spenders in free agency, right? There's no reason to free up cap space this year by restructuring a player's contract, raising their future cap hit, if you don't plan on spending that money this year, right? Why would you make life difficult you down the road if you want to make life easy on you now and then you don't take advantage of all that extra money you just freed up? So contract restructures, I hope that kind of dispels some fallacies about what a restructure is. And if you want to spend more money this offseason, you can generate more money by restructuring contracts like Jake Matthews. If they do that, now we're talking $65 million in free agency. Obviously, that's a big number, and they don't have to get to that number. I only think they would do all 5 of those steps if they are determined Kirk Cousins is our guy, and he wants a 2-year, $90 million contract. That's $45 million. Well, we got to get to 65 so we can pay 45 to him and then have an extra $20 million to spend on some other players as well. This would be we're going full throttle on 2024 free agency. We want to generate as much room as possible. You don't have to generate as much room as we went over today, but there are levels to it depending on how much you want to spend. I really appreciate everyone for watching today's video, and I mean, you guys know who you are. The end of the video squad watching all the way through. Type ATL in the comment section because I like to think when other people are in the comments, like, what are all these ATLs? I'm like, you scrub, you don't watch all the way to the end of the video. That's why you have no idea.